Trixie was standing by her locker with her friend Sunset Shimmer. They were talking about the upcoming formal dance that's gonna happen within a week. So, did Flash ask you to be his date for the dance? Asked Trixie. Yep, he did, 2 days ago. And honestly, I'm really happy that he did ask me. So, how's your feelings towards Flash ever since, what happened? Oh, right. Well, at first I wasn't sure if he would you know, even give me a second chance. But ever since the camp, Camp Everfree, I started to maybe thinking I should at least tell him that I really like him. Trixie nodded and said, "You should. I mean, you two were so good together even recently, and you had spent a lot of time together." Yeah, but not more about talking about me. What about you? Have you found a date for the dance yet? No, I really haven't, said Trixie. Was looking a bit down. Trixie hadn't really thought much about who to ask, since there were a lot of boys in the school, but some already had been found a date for a dance or even were even going with their own partner. But then Sunset asked, "What about Fairy Judgment?" Fairy Judgment? Yeah. I mean, you two had spent a lot of time together doing homeworks and even schoolwork together. Wait, you've seen that? I happened to pass by this school library like twice and seen you do some schoolwork together, and honestly, I kind of sense that you felt happier around him. Oh, well, kinda. Actually, Trixie were in fact in love with Fairy Judgment, but she hadn't even given much a thought until now. And especially with the formal dance was just around the corner, she would probably be really happy if he did ask her to be his date for the dance. Even if there were just two friends going to the dance. Maybe you should give him a hint. Sunset, do you really honestly believe that I'm that desperate to find a date? I'm saying desperate. Just give him a hint. Fine, I will try, but I can't guarantee you that's gonna work. But what if we actually have found someone else to take to the dance? Trixie, you won't even know that until you actually take the chance, or at least, figure it out. Yeah, you had a good point, Sunset. After that, Sunset and Trixie went to their own separate classes, and during the day, Trixie did thought about what Sunset told her about the formal dance, and even somehow tried to ask or even give the hint to Fairy Judgment. By the end of the day, as Trixie was leaving the school building, she actually heard a voice behind her. "Hey, Trixie, hang on." She turned to see it was actually Fairy Judgment. Trixie, can I talk to you for a moment?" "What is it?" she asked. "Well, I wanted to ask you something." "Yeah?" You know that the formal dance is around the corner?" "Yeah, I do." "Well, would you perhaps go into the dance with me as my date?" She was actually stunned because before he had asked her, she was actually considered any possibilities of ways of how to give the hint to him. But Apparently, he beats her to all that. You know, I even love that. The funny thing is, I was thinking how to give you the hint to take me to the dance. Wait, seriously? Yeah, what a random coincidence that is. Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I would love to go with you for the formal dance as a date. Great. I will pick you up on that evening by your house. Sure, I wouldn't mind. And on the day where it happened, she waited outside her home, and Fairy Judgment actually picked her up. And wow, you look amazing in that. Thanks. You don't look so bad yourself in that tux. Well, this big? Yeah, this actually I got it by myself for about a month ago for a different reason. But I thought, why not? I mean, this is a school dance, and I really wanted to look at least decent. I hear you. So they actually went to the school dance, and even there, Trixie really had a good time. She very much danced along with Fairy Judgment. And during when they didn't dance, Sunset actually walked up to her and asked, "So, did you tell him? Or like how did you even give him the hint?" Well, actually, and she had even told Sunset how it even happened, since that was about a week ago. Um, well, then she told her. Wait, seriously? He beat you to it? Yeah. Hmm. Do you love him? Sunset. But yeah, I do. Maybe this is a chance you could tell him. Are you serious, Sunset? I think she actually was at a good point. They were both interrupted by the voice, and they both turned, and there stood Fairy Judgment. He heard. Trixie felt so embarrassed that she ran out of the room, and in the hallway, Fairy Judgment actually went after her and said, "Trixie, don't worry. I do like you as much as anything is possible. I mean, due to the fact we have spent so much time with doing the homework and the schoolwork together, I actually felt more attracted to you than I had ever to any other girl before." Really? Yeah. And honestly, I don't want to even be with anyone else other than with you. She felt so happy, and then she asked if he wanted to be her boyfriend. Even though they had known each other for a while now, and he had no other options to say then other than yes. Of course, he could say no, but after he really just confessed her own feelings, he didn't want to reject her all that. They went back to the school dance and enjoyed it. They just decided to make it as their first official date. But there was something about that troubles Trixie. She wondered, what if he had rejected her? How would their friendship, or more likely, he would have avoided her as much as possible? She would have had some nightmares of that for a few days afterwards. At first, when she had those nightmares, she didn't even told anyone, not even Fairy Judgment. At first, she was conflicted if she should tell him anyone, but eventually, after just a few days of these nightmares, she did eventually told him. He was like, "Trixie, if you have some doubts about her, no, it's not like I have the doubts. It just the very thought of that you would reject me, that was the cause of the nightmares, and also a bit of being worried is understanding," he said. "I mean, considering how much you actually felt so much about this, it's fair understanding. Honestly though, I would have felt the same thing. You, you do? Yes. You know, before I even actually decided to even ask you for even to be on dance, I was having some better doubts that you would reject me. Wait, seriously? Yeah. They actually laughed about it since they both had the same doubts. But now they're truly meant happy. Some time had passed since that day. One day when both Judge Fairy Judgment and Trixie were out for a walk together in the park, they suddenly was jumped in front of, they were stopped when this random guy jumped in front of them. He was holding a handgun. He demanded for them to hand over all their valuables, their phones, the watches, anything that it has of value. Trixie, who was so petrified of fear. Of course, Fairy Judgment stood in front of her and said very calmly, "Just leave. Just leave us alone." "I don't care. Give me your money. Give me your money," the man screamed. But Fairy Judgment, he was calm. He tried to de-escalate the whole thing. But this was only getting this other man furious. In a desperate attempt to grab Trixie, Fairy Judgment stopped, and then there was two pops, and the man just ran off, and Fairy Judgment collapsed. He was shot twice in his stomach. Trixie, who was still in a petrified state, didn't even move. It was fair for understanding because seeing her boyfriend being shot twice and also being held at gunpoint by a strange man who demanded all the valuables, but eventually she snapped out of it. She managed to grab her sleeve of her jacket and held it at the wounds. She called out for help. Some witness managed to call for an ambulance. Luckily, he was rushed to the hospital fast. He was taken to the hospital and went through the surgery. He managed to pull through, and the later was informed that the man had been found thanks to the description of the witnesses. He was sentenced for a long time behind bars. Trixie felt devastated because at that time when Fairy Judgment were laying in the hospital bed, she called Sunset and she went over to Trixie's home. They talked. I don't know if I can handle this. Trixie, he will be fine. The doctors told you that he is gonna make it, right? Yeah. Then don't give up hope. He will make it. As long as you stay by his side and don't give up hope, things will be good. And Sunset was right. Eventually, Fairy Judgment was able to leave the hospital. He was actually even some short time afterwards was able to go back to school. And things between him and Trixie was stable. She still blames herself for allowing him to be shot twice. But he told her firmly, no matter what she had done, she could end up being shot, or both at the same time. But it was also not a guarantee, even if they handed over all the values to the man, they could still have been the chance of being shot at. And that was one thing that they could never understand why suddenly someone like him would do it. Eventually, both finished high school, Trixie started working at her dad's magic shop. And Fairy Judgment, he actually started working at the music store nearby, and they even actually moved in together just a year after they finished high school. Around the time after they just finished their moving in, Fairy Judgment actually proposed to Trixie, and she said yes. They could have been happier to finally to getting married, but they decided to have a small wedding because they didn't even have the finances for a big grand wedding. So they choose to go to have a courthouse wedding with one witness each. Sunset was asked to be Trixie's witness, and also as a maid of honor, and Fairy Judgment had asked one of his friends to be his witness and as a best man. They eventually went back to Trixie's childhood home, where her parents and some other close family and friends had organized a small gathering to celebrate this. They were just happy to finally be married, despite what they had went through back in high school. They couldn't have been happier to finally to be able to get married. But after all this, there is so much more that they could even not ask for. Even after they get married, they choose not to go to have a honeymoon since it would have been too much money for them to save up. About 2 years after they got married, Trixie and Fairy Judgment made a big announcement. They were expecting their first child, a boy. Both sides of families were more than happy to finally be given their first grandchild. And about a year after that grandchild was born, Trixie and Fairy Judgment made another announcement they were expecting their second child. Even though this wasn't planned, but it just kind of happened. They were expecting a daughter. Even after all this, Trixie and of course Fairy Judgment could have been happier to finally to have found their true love. Despite back in high school how they were both shy and not even sure how to confess their own feelings for each other, but in a way how Fairy Judgment actually did ask her to be his date for the formal dance, and how they would start dating on the actual formal dance event, and how close Trixie were almost about to lose Fairy Judgment. Because seeing her boyfriend at the time being shot twice made her fear of losing her beloved boyfriend. But she never gave up. She always knew that he would pull through, which he eventually did, and she could have been happier to find out to see that he did pull through. And now they are also even happy to be married, to have a family of their own. They were planning to telling their children how they were eventually how they met, and how their dating were. They were maybe waiting to mention the part that their dad was shot twice, even when they're a bit older. But deep down, Trixie, she could have been happier to finally to be with the one that she loved the most. Because after all this is the most amazing time in her life. The same thing as with Fairy Judgment. He could have been happier to finally to be with Trixie Lulamoon. And this is how Fairy Judgment and Trixie Lulamoon found a true love, got a big family together. The end.